Welcome back to the Reier on YouTube channel. It is a Tuesday afternoon. A Monday afternoon. I'm not trying to wish the weeks away here.
Hmm.
Monday afternoon, live on Reier on YouTube. It is No Sleep Till. I'm Travis Reier. He is Evan Reier, of course. And Evan, there's a tinge of positivity
Yeah.
in the Duval air today following the Jacksonville Jaguars 17 to 17 tie with the New Orleans Saints on Sunday afternoon in NOLA. Yeah, it's a 17 to 17 tie, but when you think about the frontline players that the Jags ran out there against the Saints, hard not to feel good about that performance, especially when you consider that the Jags, like the Saints, held some notable guys out of that exhibition game.
Yeah, no, we got the kind of offensive performance that we were looking for, at least getting that starting group, the majority of them being on the field, getting a touchdown. You just want to see them get into the end zone, right? So that was nice. And, also, I actually thought some of the stuff we saw on defense was pretty encouraging as well. Of course, like you said, Saints held some guys out. Saints offense, not exactly a powerhouse,
Ooh.
but certain things we were seeing, especially like blitz packages. Like when they brought Dewey on that sack, that was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Trayvon Walker gets the intentional grounding penalty as well. You can basically chalk that up as a
Third
sack.
and 30 for the Saints.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's what you like
Uh,
to see any time of year, right?
that's the deal is that, obviously Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, those are the guys that you're thinking about when it comes to, getting after the quarterback. But seeing Dewey come off the edge there, I kind of like that too. I think that's the kind of way you utilize a guy like that, and it paid off. So
It did, and they ran some games with Dewan Smoot involved, in the pass rush that freed up some guys too. I thought that was interesting. Nothing totally out of the box in terms of
yeah,
creativity. Basic type of games, but Smoot continues to flash in some of those situations himself. And yeah, I agree. I think in really all three phases, you saw it. You saw it again from Cam Little. I mean, I drills another one from about 52, 53 that would have been good from 70 again, it looked like. So, really good stuff in every phase. Didn't like the turnovers, obviously, from
yeah,
three different quarterbacks, including Trevor. And that turnover was on Trevor on that opening drive. He had
yeah. I mean,
such a
that's
good start. What I liked offensively, too, Ev, was operationally, it was a smoother ride this
yeah,
week than it was the previous week. You didn't have a penalty to open the game like you did against the Steelers. And we talked about this a little bit before the show. There was obviously a big emphasis on cleaning things up after that Steelers performance, and then also
fundamentals.
fundamentals, remedial, whatever you want to call it, come to Jesus type
Yeah.
of work, it seems like took place here in Jacksonville last week.
Yeah, I mean, considering the performance against the Steelers, and then what was coming out of practice in terms of what coaches were saying, what players were saying of like, yeah, we this is not necessarily great. We're kind of going back to the basics to then show up and at least look competent. To look like there's a good understanding of what both the offense and defense are trying to do. That was encouraging for sure. At the end of the day, obviously, just like last week, you can't draw massive conclusions
Mm-mm.
from, any of that, but you want it to be positive. You want it to be, encouraging. And I think it was.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting the Jags without Travis Hunter
Yeah.
in week 2 of the preseason. So that created some interest for me in terms of what do the Jags come out in from a personnel perspective. They came out in 12. They came out with two tight ends.
Yep.
And then Parker Washington continues to be a really positive story for this offense.
Yeah.
Gets the start alongside Brian Thomas Jr., ends up getting into the end zone. Love the touchdown from Parker Washington because he played through contact
Yep.
to get into the end zone. When you think of Parker Washington prior to this season, it was yak yards after catch, but it wasn't so much you would think yards after contact. He showed me some toughness in breaking a tackle and then being decisive and getting into the end zone. And, we saw it again from the Jags run game too. Positivity from ETN. Tank Bigsby had a really nice chunk play on a 19-yard reception. So that two-back approach looks like it's very much going to be in play. Michelle Tootin, too, though, shows you some power from inside the 10 for the second straight week. A lot of positives again. Once you get past the turnovers, especially the one in the red zone with Trevor having his foot stepped on by Ezra Cleveland. And so, that kind of leads us to that offensive line, too. I thought that was interesting. Some shuffling that's been going on and a different group for sure that we saw, not just in terms of performance, but just where guys were lined up with an emphasis on that right side.
Yeah, I mean, I think what those adjustments really, you saw it like instant improvement. Like pretty much every play that the starters were out there. I mean, generally Trevor had a clean pocket. ETN and Bigsby and whoever else was getting the ball at that point, all were able to have some space to be patient with their run and make a move. That Bigsby catch and run was the exact type of thing that I think Jaguars fans are really hoping to see. Especially it's funny though because we talked all offseason about how ETN is maybe that guy, and then Bigsby is the guy that you're handing the ball off. It kind of was, reverse roles a little bit.
Yeah.
But hey, I love that we have two running backs that can both do that. That's a very awesome thing.
It is. And so spreading of the wealth once again with Trevor showing an ability to sort of hang in. He did have one semi spin out and then he stayed in there and actually delivered a pretty good strike, I think, to Brian Thomas Jr. He had an opportunity with BTJ on looked like an over route that, I thought Trevor actually put that ball in a good spot because it was zone coverage and he was protecting BTJ, whether it was intentional or not. And, Brian couldn't come up with the catch there. Ball a little bit low, but that was a ball I thought the placement of it was going to be helpful because, that's one of those where Trevor could have run him into the hospital if he kind of leads him or makes him extend there in the hole.
And we saw Trevor, throw hospital balls in the previous game. So the fact that the ball placement, he was clean. Trevor was very clean in that game. Other than the one or two mistakes, but I mean that's stuff that you can deal with. Falling over, that miscue there. That that's a very rare thing. That's not a common issue really. So. That was encouraging. I will say with BTJ, there's been a lot of chatter over the past month or two of he hasn't, exactly lit it up. It hasn't necessarily been the most encouraging offseason for him. At this point, are you having concerns about a sophomore slump, or do you think that, it's just sometimes this is just what a offseason preseason looks like for a star player?
No, because I thought even last year, and I wrote this off more to him being a rookie, he had some struggles, especially early on in camp, but so did Trevor. I think maybe Trevor being better in this camp, anyone else that maybe has some struggles, they're magnified, amplified a little bit more. Now we'll see. I think the good thing is you still have a Travis Hunter. And you still have a Parker Washington, right? So you're not going to be as dependent on Travis Hunter to be a 1,500 yard receiver this year because you're going to spread the wealth more and you're going to establish a physical run game and you're going to throw it to those backs. So, we talked about this a couple of shows ago, I think. It's going to be hard for someone to put up all pro type numbers, maybe at a multitude of offensive skill spots because balance, I think, is going to be a real thing for this Jacksonville offense. And so, the offensive line continues again for me to be a big part of this. You get Makari in the lineup yesterday against the Saints, but it may be that Big Fred Johnson is a guy that's going to prove hard to keep out of this lineup, whether it's right tackle, whether it's left tackle. And he's very much the third tackle at a minimum right now. And with the way they want to play offense, with his size and his aggression, he seems to be right up the alley for what they want at that spot.
Well, and I think especially last year, really the past 2 or 3 years, there's been guys that are, I guess, serviceable, as in those backup tackle spots. But Fred Johnson is actually pushing Anton Harrison and Walker Little right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's not kind of this certainty that those are going to be your guys. At least they're going to start, I would say, week one, beginning of the season, but. If you F around, you're going to find out. And, that's a beautiful thing too. I mean, having, a guy that's actually playing at a high enough level that, he could potentially push for a starting spot. Those young dudes, they obviously, we talk about potential with Anton Harrison, and we know that, he has all the talent to be a really, really good player, but we have yet to see, what we think is, the top of his potential. So, no, Fred Johnson is I would say probably the biggest positive or surprise positive on that offensive line.
Yeah, we kind of went in this preseason thinking, well, there would be legit comp at one, maybe two spots, but with the way they're willing to shuffle that group in the first 2 weeks of the preseason and give everyone a real shot, it feels like. And you're also thinking ahead, which I like. You're thinking about contingency plans if you have an injury or two once you get into the season. I think they have a good idea already who their 7 or 8 are going to be.
Yeah.
But there could be scenarios where their 8th has to be in their 5. But as much as anything, you still get the sense they're still looking for their 5. And they know that, the center position with Hainsey, that's set. That's their guy.
Right.
Ezra Cleveland right now looks like he's the guy
at
left guard. But, with guards, you can kind of move them around. They can play left or right. So even if I'm a guy that has the look of being entrenched through 2 games, I probably wouldn't get too comfortable with that. And I think that's exactly what this new regime wants. They don't want folks to get comfortable in any form or fashion from a positional status perspective to this point. What about the defensive side? I think the Jags came out in their base yesterday, their base 4-3. So it was similar to what we saw last week. Yasser Abdullah on the field at the one linebacker spot to go along with Boye and Devin Lloyd, with Mason Smith. That was some good news last week, right? Being activated from the PUP list. Still no Eric Armstead. So Smith didn't play in the game yesterday, but Tyler Lacey continued in that role with Devon Hamilton at those inside spots. Then you had, of course, Hines Allen and Trayvon, who, as you said, right from the outset, made his presence felt. But I thought it was interesting with Hunter out and the Jags in their base. It was Jerry Jones at a corner, and it was Jordan Lewis at the other corner. When the Jags went to their nickel package, it was Christian Braswell that came on at a corner. Lewis went inside to the slot, and then you had Jarian playing the other corner position. So kind of gave you a glimpse into where they're at in terms of how their pecking order is working at that corner and that slot corner when they didn't have Hunter available on Sunday.
Yeah. And I mean, really, obviously we know Travis Hunter is going to, get snaps. He's going to get opportunities on that defense, but that's probably really more of what the guys you're going to be paying a lot of attention to, obviously other than Tyson Campbell. So I was overall encouraged by that. I mean, the thing about Jordan Lewis, right, is that, he's, known for being, the nickel guy, he's, the best nickel corner in the NFL, or at least he has been in the past, but clearly not an issue to go outside. It's not like it's, hyper fixated on that one spot. And I thought, Darian Jones had a pretty quiet, clean game again, kind of thing you're looking for. Of course we would love to see some flashes of like big play making ability from that secondary group, but overall they, there weren't a lot of issues, and a 3-point first half for the first and second team, that's pretty dang good. You like that?
Yeah. Once you got into the 2/3s and 4s, boy. Yeah. You had some issues there. Spencer Rattler looked like Drew Brees reincarnate or something, once he got in there against that group. So you would like to see a little stronger play from your reserves. But if we're being honest, you got a lot of cuts out there
Yeah.
both ways on
Yeah.
Sunday. And yeah, no Tyson Campbell. So it was a different look at the corner spots a little bit to go along with the nickel package. Looked like when the Jags went dime, we saw Wingard actually move up to the dime back position there alongside, that was Devin Lloyd, I believe, that stayed out there in the
Yeah.
dime. And then you had Darnell Savage to go along with Eric Murray, I think, at the safeties, and kind of what we talked about at corner. If there's one thing, I think you kind of touched on this, you want to go ahead and reestablish or establish for the first time in a long time or too long, kind of a culture of taking the football away.
Yeah.
And so that's, the Jags did produce an interception, but it was with, so late and with some guys that, you're not expecting to make your football team. You want to see that. And also turnover margin was just horrific for the
Yeah.
Jags a year ago. That's got to change a good bit as well. So, we're going to get closer to that final roster, or at least that season opening roster. Do you have a guy or two maybe that you went into this camp thinking, yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this guy? Is it still a guy like Joshua Cephas? Is Joshua Cephas going to make this roster when it's all said and done? Or, I mean, is it going to be an Austin Trammell at wide receiver?
That's kind of, you kind of jumped me. The first name I was going to say.
Okay. All right.
No, but no, like, I mean that in a good way. Like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I would say, of the entire roster, kind of the one spot where I'm like, like this is going to be interesting for that
wide receiver depth.
Yeah, that fifth receiver spot. I mean, Cephas, I think, is kind of still the one that I feel like has the most upside. The stuff that we've seen from him over the past year and change, has been very encouraging. But Trammell's had a very nice offseason, very nice preseason so far. So it's that's like a serious question right there.
When they went three wides for the first time yesterday, it was Trammell that came on.
Yeah.
In the three wides. I mean, they were base 12 personnel. When they went to 11, that was Trammell. Now, because you didn't have Travis Hunter, maybe that changed kind of your rotation a little bit. Maybe, if that's not what it is, maybe Cephas. But what it goes back to for me too, though, is what Cephas is going to give me in special teams if I keep him. If it comes down to it, it may not come down to it. Maybe you can keep both. But if that was an either or situation, I do think that would be especially fascinating. And also, I think corner depth's going to be fascinating because they've got talented guys like Trey Prince, that they drafted just last year. And you look at Prince and you think this is an NFL corner. He looks like an NFL corner. I think from the outset, though, of his Jaguars career, there have been issues with kind of getting him to be a pro on a consistent basis. So Braswell, Prince, you've got some guys you're gonna have to make some tough calls on, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, in that secondary group as well, you think about like Daniel Thomas. I mean, that's kind of a guy that's at the fifth or sixth spot as things stand. I mean, I will say that is also a spot that the Jaguars could do, I guess, something a little surprising just by, if for some reason they're like, what, Antonio Johnson, just, because he's also kind of that one of those weak links in that group, that's the kind of guy that even in the first round of cuts, just because it's, with veterans and things like that, if they know that, this guy's not going to make the squad or they're planning on building without him, that could be an earlier cut rather than, the actual final cuts to the 53-man roster. No, I mean, there's really spots all over the board. Defensive line, I mean, you bring in Khalen Saunders, that, opens up a whole new dynamic of, wait, are they bringing in Saunders because they just already know that they want him as a 53-man guy? And who's out if Khalen Saunders is in?
I was going to ask you that trade, when you heard about it here in the last 12 to 15 hours, how did it strike you in regards to, well, this is what the Jaguars think about their current offensive line depth, maybe between guard and center, And also, though, what does it say about the current situation along the defensive line? Did it further concerns maybe you had about Eric Armstead and what his true availability is
Looks
going to
like,
be? What does it say about a guy like maybe Jordan Jefferson? That
yeah.
they drafted a year ago as a 4th-round pick. So, how did that strike you initially when you got word of that deal?
I was definitely very positive when I heard that news. Khalen Saunders is obviously not like a household name, not a star, but a veteran with 2 Super Bowls to his name, and a dude who, it was one play, but picked off Patrick
Picked
Mahomes
off
in the
Pat
red zone.
Mahomes.
Come on, I mean that's sick. But he has gotten a lot more experience than he had in like his first few seasons, the last 2 years with the Saints. But he's still 29. There's still some time for him. He's not a spring chicken, but he's not old. I think what that says about the both groups that we're talking about. I think with the defensive line, I think it concerns me more, not necessarily in overall ability, but in terms of availability. You do have to ask questions about that. Jordan Jefferson, that is a like that. The alert is kind of flashing there. If I'm in his spot, I'm thinking like, oh well, where do I fit into this?
Well, and what about Javon Foster too? I mean,
Yeah.
those were 2 4th-round picks a year ago, and you
Now,
don't see Javon Foster until late on
yeah,
Sunday. And
it also shows that they're feeling very confident about Jonah Monheim.
they
If
do.
if
You
it
like
was,
that pick. That was your guy going into the draft. You were big on Jonah Monheim.
I was a big fan of it. I thought that was great value in the 5th round.
Mhm.
But they obviously, Hainsey has looked solid. He looks, really
Yeah.
assured.
Yeah.
And then having Monheim behind him, it's like that's the thing though, is your starting center goes down. You got to feel really good about the guy behind that.
Yeah.
And obviously, if it's a 5th-round rookie and they're willing to roll with them as their backup going in, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. Probably I think Fortner's chances of making the Saints
Are far higher than
might be, yeah. And I think maybe that's kind of what this deal was based on. It's just going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out in the end.
yeah.
Who sticks on rosters, who's let go, and those type of things. So it is Luke Fortner, the center, dealt to the Saints for Khalen Saunders. And again, you're excited. Mason Smith apparently on the road back here for the start of the season. So you need that because that's still Devon Hamilton. You feel good about solid player. But you want some more difference makers on that inside, and that's where they need it right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Saunders, at the end of the day, when you go look at what he has been able to do, in his like 6 seasons in the NFL, I mean, this is a guy that, 32 starts, 6.5 sacks. I mean, that's not bad. That's for a DT, for a guy who's 325 pounds, like you like that. He also has a really good knack for getting his hands up. Had 3 pass swats last year. This is a dude that, even if he's obviously only playing, like 10 to 15 snaps a game at best, you still feel pretty good about him just at least being able to do something. So I think it's a really shrewd move. I mean, it's 2 players on 2 teams that were looking at a pretty tough, road to the 53-man roster and are now going in the spots where they ought to have a legit chance. I think for me personally, I think the Jags wouldn't move for Saunders unless they planned on having him be on the 53-man roster. You just now it's a question of, okay, well, who's not joining the group?
Yeah. Who's not sticking around?
Is there a more, Jordan Jefferson is kind of, that's, a name we've mentioned. But is there anybody else that, could be a surprising cut? Or maybe the Jaguars kind of go for something a little different and actually load up on DTs, an extra DT spot. That's something that's a bit of a question mark. Not a lot of teams often go for that, but the Jaguars have had such significant issues, especially last year, with quality of defensive line play, that I don't blame them for necessarily ensuring that they have a another body that they can feel decent about.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it on the official depth chart for the Jaguars that they have issued. Jordan Jefferson's listed as the backup to Devon Hamilton, but in 2 preseason games to this point, it's been Tyler Lacey that has worked alongside Devon Hamilton there at the one, and they're different type of players. I get that.
For sure.
I think one's more of a shade, true nose tackle type, like Hamilton, like Jefferson. Lacey's more of that 3 technique, like a Mason Smith and Eric Armstead. So you have to take that into account as well. So the Jags make the rare preseason trade, and you see some in-season moves from time to time, but preseason maybe not so much. Anything else, Ev, before we get out of here? I had something else, actually. I don't know if you saw this today. Bill Barnwell of ESPN has the Jacksonville Jaguars among his 5 teams most likely to improve in 2025. And my answer to that is they damn well better.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of nothing.
4-13 for a team that a lot of people think is still in its playoff window. Yeah, they better improve.
I mean, that's it'd be one thing if the article or anything like that was titled, playoff dark horse or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, they could improve by winning 5 games. So that's a market improvement. 25% more wins if you win 5 games this year. That's big numbers. Tony Khan can break it down however he wants to, but I wanted to point out the real winner of Sunday's game, which I don't know if you saw this video, but a Jacksonville citizen rolled up to NOLA and threw hands.
I saw the smoke. Yeah,
and won. He won.
Literally knocked my man's pants off. He beat
his ass so bad he knocked his pants off. That's whoever that dude is.
I don't know if there were any winners in that actually, but yeah, I mean, my guy in the Travis Hunter jersey definitely won on points.
Could have gone for maybe a size up on the Travis Hunter jersey. I will say as well, not that I'm in any place to talk, but as somebody who's worn jerseys that are a little too tight before, I just know what I'm looking at, right?
Yeah.
But no, that was a very you always that kind of thing always makes me laugh.
That's dangerous, man. That's dangerous to roll up into NOLA and on
preseason or otherwise
on the road and start launching rockets with folks in NOLA.
I will say there were several Saints fans.
You got to trust your hands a lot.
If I'm dude whose pants fell down, there were dudes around them at that point, all Saints fans that seemed like they were that guy's friend or whatever. Nobody hopped up. Everybody just let my man get
I think they may have been stunned. I think my guy Logan might be that guy.
Yeah.
He's that guy. He's that guy.
Look, we know NOLA's a tough place.
He wasn't that guy yesterday.
We know NOLA's a tough place. We know Jacksonville's a tough place. So at the end of the day, though, I like you said, probably not a real winner there, but one dude's pants fell down, and it wasn't the guy from Jacksonville. So
no, our guy or the Jags guy, he remained pantsed. He didn't get pantsed in that whole deal. Yeah,
but that's all I got.
Yeah, and it's just the preseason. And we got this.
No, don't let the Jags start winning games.
Oh gosh.
Don't let the Jags start winning games.
Rough. Well, all right, Ev. Always a lot of fun with you here on Reier on YouTube. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. If you'd give us a thumbs up, that would help us out. A like would be tremendous as well. Hit the notification bell. That way you're alerted to all of our content as it drops right here on Reier on YouTube. On to Miami, Ev.
Big week.
Got a joint practice down there. Ought to be nice and crisp.
Oh, yeah.
In South Florida for that one. And then, of course, the preseason game. House of Horrors after that season opener last year down there. But
there's some PTSD. Maybe I don't know if you can really exercise your demons in a preseason game like that, but who knows? Maybe there's a few things we can see this upcoming weekend that, are market improvement from what we saw last year.
Yeah, I was there for that opener last year. I'm good about
With the
going
Hard
back
Rock.
anytime soon.
Yeah,
I
feel
don't
that.
maybe just sit ETN, just hold him out this week.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be there.
Just let him go. And that will be interesting in all seriousness, based on the joint practice, how that impacts Trevor and some of the guys as you go into that game.
This is the week where you want to hear good things from practice way
Right.
more than you want to hear it from, the
Damn
actual
Dolphins, it's like every week they're joint practicing, seems like.
Mike McDaniel wants the
Yeah.
the
Unreal.
live rounds, the
Yeah.
reps,
Live reps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it goes down there, and we will have reaction to that and everything Jags related the next time we reconvene right here on Reier on YouTube. It is No Sleep Till. Evan Reier right there. I'm Travis Reier. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in live. The show will archive right there on the channel, on the homepage. So if you missed any or all of the show live, catch us right there. Until next time, so long,
See y'all.
everybody.